my name is Caitlin Clarkson, and I am the director of the London School here in London, Ontario. And today I'm going to be discussing our school with one of our alumni, Emma, and one of our parents, Megan. And we're just going to be going over some of the questions that a lot of parents have when they contact our school, and also discussing anything that they would like to say about what they like about our school, and also what we do and how we do it. So to start off with, Emma is a graduate of our school. She graduated in 2020 and is now at Western University. And she is an academic student and has always been really involved in all of the activities at the school, whether it's fundraising or trips to the Grand Theater or things like that. And so she has, I'm sure, a lot of opinions that she can share with the school. And Megan, would you like to introduce yourself a bit more?
Oh, yes, sure. I'm Megan. I live about an hour away from London, and we have 5 girls. Our youngest daughter, Heidi, attended the London school starting in her grade 11 year and is now a graduate and off to Lakehead University in 2 weeks.
Yes. She told me that she's going to be studying forestry, which is...
Yes, she's getting a Bachelor of Environmental Science, majoring in forestry.
That is exciting.
It is exciting, actually.
It's very, and it's that kind of study is needed right now. You know, people need to be focused on the environment right now, and especially with all the news that we've been hearing, there's a lot to learn, and I'm sure that she'll do a fantastic job. She sounded really excited.
She's, yes, very much looking forward to it. I think more so than we are. It's far away.
It's very far, a far drive for sure.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying that the only thing that I know about Thunder Bay is that we have a teacher from Thunder Bay, and that I would like to go there to see the Northern Lights. That's the only thing that I was that came to mind instantly about Thunder Bay. And Emma, what are your plans for your education?
Well, I'm doing an undergraduate at Western, and I'm majoring in neuroscience. And I think that's what I want to do. I think I want to study the brain, but I don't know. I'm just going to try and keep my options open.
Keeping all the doors open is a good plan. That's what we try and do all the way through high school. So Emma, I'm going to start with a question for you. And I think I'll probably just go back and forth, because I think that it is something that maybe both of you can answer, which is, what did you appreciate most about the school when you were there? And how has your perspective changed now that you've had a little bit of time away from the school?
I think that during my time at the school, which was a long time, I really loved how involved the teachers were in my success and the other students' success. It really seemed like it was we were all in it together. And I really enjoyed having a quiet work environment, because I think everybody benefits from that, whether they know it or not. I think that when it's loud and bustling, you don't get as much work done. And I also enjoyed that because of the school's small size, you really get to know what you're learning really well, and you get to know all the people in your classes. And it's all just really collaborative. You're working with all the students, even if you don't really know each other all that well at first. And I think the last thing I really appreciated, I didn't ever get the feeling that it was an authoritarian sense with the teachers. It wasn't about calling them Mr. or Mrs. It was just about knowing that and having trust that you're going to listen to what they have to say, and they'll also in turn listen to what you have to say, and there's mutual respect there.
Thank you. But certainly something that we work for. We're constantly trying to find ways to engage students and keep them engaged. And one of the ways we do that is by the way we structure our classrooms, which is very small, very collaborative, and we don't stand on a hierarchy. We don't have a top-down teacher who is large and in charge. Our teachers are right there beside our students and often very engaged in what it is that is being taught. And you know, they love what they do. That's why we hire the teachers that we do. And Megan, what do you think? What did you appreciate most about the school when Heidi was there?
A lot of things that Emma brought up were very much the positives for us, because having had all of our children always in a traditional classroom and traditional high school, when Heidi was really struggling, the London school, the first appeal was the small class size, and just the large groups make her nervous. Mm-hmm. And she was kind of fading away in these large classrooms that have 30, 35 kids, and to the point where she didn't know her teachers, they didn't know her. Mm-hmm. And we saw that instantly change, you know, when she walked into your front door. was a big thing.
That is thank you so much, because that really is what we do. And that's why we're in the building that we're in. That's why we interact with parents and students in the same way. Everyone is treated with respect and everyone is really valued, because, you know, that if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be doing, you know, like what we say we do. And so when you walk in, you might be walking into a class of 6 or 8, but everyone really does get that chance to be heard. And
I know Heidi almost felt like, in a lot of ways, after it took her probably 2 months to get used to the way the school went, because it was just so not what she had done. And then she would start saying things like, when I come in the back door, I feel like I'm coming in at home. Oh. You know, and just things like she was very, very, very comfortable very quickly, which I think then relaxed her to the point where everything became extremely comfortable.
Yeah, I think it's so hard to learn in an environment where you're stressed. Yes. I know that I can't. When I'm stressed, all I think about is how stressed I am. And, you know, definitely we've had that with COVID as well, you know, that level of background stress for students. And so it's definitely been a different couple of years for us. But I think it's, and for everyone, but I think we've certainly, you know, tried to appreciate how challenging it is for everyone.
I noticed too how seamlessly when COVID happened, the London school was able to transition the kids really quickly.
Well, thank you for saying seamlessly. It didn't feel so seamless.
Probably not on your end, no. But it was nice though, because I think it became for Heidi something not to worry about when she would be talking to her friends who were in her older high school. You know, they were basically, by March, they weren't doing schoolwork. March of 2020, they all just kind of stopped. They were like, no exams, no this, no that. We're going to get our credits. Yet you continued on, just like, you know, it's a normal school day. Let's keep, you know, plugging forward.
Yeah, I think we didn't want that to happen, because we were just afraid what would happen to the integrity of the credits, for sure. And we had students that were graduating, so you've got to make sure they're still prepared for college or university or whatever it is that they're going forward to. Yeah, but we had a crash course in Zoom, and and we worked really, really hard over that break, but so that we were ready to come back strong. You know,
I found it interesting too with September 2020 how many schools adopted almost the same platform as the London school was using, where they were doing 1 credit at a time.
Yes.
And I know for where I had other parents, when we would talk about the London school, they would say, oh, that's so weird, 1 class, you know, 1 class. And I'm like, it's nothing to worry about, you know, they get it done, they work at it. You don't want to do math for 6 hours. Well, actually, it's not that bad, I think. But how they saw how much better their kids, how much more successful they were when they took away all the extra, and it was just, this is our focus. Okay.
It is a focus. And immersion, you know, like we know immersion works for languages. So why not for science? Why not for math? Why not for English? Because it is something where you take away all the distraction. And if you love it, then you're already thrilled to be in a full day of that. And if you don't love it, it's over. It's over
Yeah,
in
the end is
100
in sight. Yep.
Yeah, the end is there. And the best part for me is that there's no shock for students or parents when report cards come, because it's a short interval. And if something starts to go wrong for students, because sometimes it does, you can course correct or say, maybe we have to do this one again without it being a whole semester of school. So I agree. I really, really liked it. And always have. I think it definitely served, my kids. Okay, here is.
We just get slightly off track, right? Let's start here.
This is the story of my
This is
love
the classroom.
Yes. Now they didn't say whether or not to ask you guys like back and forth. So I'm just going to keep going with the list. So Emma, what, to the best of your knowledge, differentiates our school from other schools? What is the unique thing about the London School?
I think honestly, this kind of correlates with what I said earlier in the fact that I think that the biggest thing is that learning at the London School is more of a partnership between the students and the teachers. Like the teachers at the school never take a stance where they're in charge and where they demand you to respect them and you have to listen to me. It's just it's a mutual relationship, and it's kind of a trust that the students and the teachers have with each other. And the teachers are honestly they act more than just teachers. I've even had the chance to talk with them about personal stuff that was happening or things I was going through at the time, because they saw that it was affecting my learning in a negative way. And they wanted me to have the best possible outcome, whether it was with a test or an exam. So I think that's the biggest difference, because in a normal classroom with 30 kids, I really don't think that teachers get the chance to get to know every single kid. They're not going to get the chance to be one-on-one with a class of 4 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for me, that's the biggest difference, is that you just get to know your teachers on a different level that you otherwise wouldn't.
Can you give me an example of a class where you felt that way, where you really felt connected with your teacher, with your classmates, where it was a really warm and welcoming atmosphere?
I think that I really felt that way when I took fashion with Gemma. It was myself, Abby, Derica, and Kristalina, I think. And I didn't really know anybody who was in that class because they were all a grade or 2 even ahead of me. So taking that class with them, it really gave me a chance to get to know them better and to get to know Gemma better, because fashion is something that she's always been really interested in. And she showed us how to do so many things. She showed us how to use a sewing machine. And we even went on outings just for fun, because we as a class all wanted to. So she really took into account what we wanted to do in that course, and she made it happen. So that's probably an experience that I have that was like that.
That's great. Thank you. And Megan, what do you think? Is there a course that stands out for you that would have really set things apart for Heidi, something that you may have heard about, I don't know, over the dinner table, or a time when you thought, hey, this is working. This course really works?
Well, many different times. I would find Heidi wouldn't so much talk about what she was learning or what it was always, Heidi's always one of those kids where it's really hard to draw information out of her. But what she would do actually is something would be going on, like we'd be having supper and she would say, oh, I found this out today. Did you know about this? And she would bring up some very strange fact about something. And we would say, how did you learn about this? And she would kind of step back through the classroom where well, we were in math and we were talking about this and how to do this, and someone brought up that you can apply that to this part of your life actually, and then it turned into a discussion about this when we found out this and we googled this, and it was, for us, that was always really interesting, where the whatever was being learned in the classroom was then coming around, and it was being examined or researched outside of what that particular subject was limited to, and that she was finding a lot of different avenues of information that were really impressive. So
well, thank you. I agree. I think that learning shouldn't happen in silos. I think that we learn better when we talk about things and when we communicate with other people who know more or less about something than we do. And the best way to have a well-rounded education is to be in it with someone who wants to learn with you, because I think a lot of times we expect teachers to know everything about their subject, and while they can know everything about the curriculum, there's still so much more to a subject to learn. And so when students ask questions, which is something that is so encouraged at the school, when students ask questions, it really opens up a whole field. So you may be teaching math, or you might be teaching fashion, you might be teaching biology, and those questions that you get from students are going to open up a huge amount of learning potential. So I think it's something that we're really, really proud of, is that we don't just teach the curriculum. I mean, we do, we teach the curriculum, but we try and extend it beyond. And because we're doing it all day in an immersion setting, you can do more. You can ask more questions. You can look at more interesting things, beyond a textbook, or beyond, what it is that you have to do to meet the expectations of the course.
one of my favorite classes that I think we all as a family learned the most about, it had to do with climate and natural disasters. I don't know.
That was one of my favorite courses that we took that year.
And I think when as a class you're planning out, like, what should you put in like your survival kit? What should you have on hand at home in case there's a disaster? Heidi spent so much time discussing with us, well, would you put this in? Because, and it just became like she had all these reasons why it should and shouldn't be in there. And you'd think that she was actually really building a survival kit, though she got so in depth about this. And yeah, it's that sort of thing, right? You see, she's thinking outside of the box, she's reasoning. And that's something we never saw in a traditional classroom setting.
And she's thinking about it outside of school, because some kids just want to they want to go to school and then be done with it and only do what they have to do. But I think that a course like that isn't even offered in a traditional high school. And I think it just really sparks interest, because it's something that none of us knew anything about really.
Yeah. And I know you did that a couple times over the years, Caitlin, where you were making curriculum that didn't exist.
Yeah, so the course exists, it just is never taught. So it's in the Ontario curriculum, but it's not taught typically because kids usually, I shouldn't call you guys kids, young kids. Kids need certain credits in order to get into university. So they want to take those mainstream science courses and mainstream history and things like that they know they can compare it as a benchmark to what do I need to get into university or college. And often there isn't enough time to take those courses that are interesting. Something like a course on climate change that does have a huge amount about natural disasters, but is really focused on what has changed within a generation, within 2 generations, as to our climate. I think everybody should take. I think, we're living in a world now where we need to know about these things. I think my generation certainly knew about them, but we haven't done much to change things. And now the burden is on the young people of today to move forward. So I think it should be taught all the time. And why is school? It doesn't have to be dull. It doesn't have to be the same. It should be exciting. We spend a lot of time making stuff exciting for, say, Hannah, in your background. Stuff for young children is really dynamic and exciting. And we spend a lot of time and money developing programs for them that are super engaging. And then when you get to high school, it's more like, oh, this is what you have to do. And why do you have to do it? Well, you just you just do because you need it. And it doesn't, it's hard to make that palatable to say you just need it. I mean, it almost sounds like cough medicine. So we really do every single year when we look at our curriculum, try and find some of those courses that are there in the curriculum but are never taught elsewhere, and say, hey, let's ramp this up, let's make this one really exciting because it's something that our grade 11s might really like, or our grade 10s might really like. And then we often talk about who wants to teach it. So, sometimes you see a teacher grab onto a course like that and say, oh, no, I need to teach this one because this is something that I really like. And then you think, really, I didn't know that you felt that way. And they say, yeah, like I can run with this. And then you give them 6 kids and suddenly you have a really interesting course. And I love the feedback when people say that they, oh, I heard that so-and-so did this today and stuff like that, because most teenagers are not wanting that level of engagement. And Emma, I agree with you. When they leave school, they leave school, and learning shouldn't be that you just check out at the end of the day.
It should make you keep thinking about it. Like the work that you're doing should make you curious, and it should make you want to know more. It shouldn't make you just want to get it over with and be done. And there's always going to be subjects that are like that for people, because like you can't like everything, but it's good to have interest in your school year, for sure.
It's certainly great to be able to make that a broader spectrum of interest for people. Okay, here's one for you, Megan. Why did you choose the London School originally? And in what way is it what you expected? And were there any surprises, or were there any ways that it was not what you expected?
Okay,
That's
a
a big
loaded question.
Yeah, there's 3 questions.
So we had lots of experience with traditional high schools, with Heidi being our youngest child. And when Heidi had come out of going to a Catholic, so a separate school, where we live in a small town, literally the same group of 20-ish kids she had since junior kindergarten, been with this same group of children right up till grade 8. So a really key group of kids, and they know each other well. And then when she went on to grade 9, she went to our local public high school and just kind of got lost almost right from day one. Just lost in the crowd and lost in the classrooms and lost with friends, and just did not have a good first year of high school. So for her second year, we actually switched her to our local Catholic high school. And it was literally just the same experience, just in a different setting. So we were really struggling after her grade 10 year because we didn't know what to do with her. She was not successful in school. She was very, very depressed. She was having trouble with anxiety. We could barely get her out the door to go to school. We were lucky once we got her to school, if she stayed at school. She just wasn't happy at all, and she wasn't learning. And I think for us, the final straw was we went to a parent-teacher meeting with one of her teachers with one of her classes that she was struggling in. Which it's one of those things where we didn't know until the end of May how bad it was for her. So we show up, my husband Ron and I with Heidi, and sat down in this teacher's classroom, and this teacher looks at Heidi, looks at his book, and starts rifling through trying to figure out who she is and what class she's in and why we're there. And Ron and I just kind of looked at each other and said, you know what, she's about to write the exam. Let's not worry about any of this right now. But then after that, we knew if we switched high schools again, we're just basically putting her into the same kind of a fishbowl. So we started looking for alternatives, and we didn't. We just kind of happened to come across the London School, I think, just from an internet search, because no one really knew who you were.
Yeah. It is one of the things when you're small.
Yes. Yeah. And we'd had some experience with Montessori schools with our older kids when they were little, but again, we live about an hour away from London, so it's not something in our area that's around. And when we came in, that's kind of what it reminded me of a little bit, because I think, because you're a house in downtown London, and it's not what you expect when you think education, because you're used to the, uniform, institutional looking kind of building. So for us, you were really, this was like almost like a shot in the dark, because we knew nothing else was working, and hopefully putting her into a smaller class with teachers who want to know her, who want to teach, who are enthusiastic about teaching, and understanding about some of the issues that come with teenagers, which are a lot. No offense, Emma.
Taken, I know.
Yeah, it's a hard age. It's a hard group. It's a hard time to grow up, and yeah, I think with Heidi was not impressed with what we were doing. It was very controlling on our part, but we just kind of said to her, we don't know what to do with you, and we're going to try this. And in a year, if you don't like it, then that's fine. We'll find something else. We'll figure this out. But after a year, she didn't even ask about going back to.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah. And for us, this was a big, like, we're an hour drive in, an hour drive home every day. And we don't work in London. So it was a lifestyle adjustment for our whole family. Yes. And the whole family pitched in to get Heidi there. And I think once we saw how successful she was and how much she was enjoying it and how happy she was, nothing else mattered anymore. So were you what we expected? We didn't know what to expect.
I know. I think it's hard when you tell people that you're in a house, and when you say you're a micro school, and everyone says, what? Micro school. Everyone knows what small classes are. And for a lot of people, that means under 20 or 15, yes. 20 people. Yeah. And you know, we have had classes that big, like art classes or classes that everyone wants to take, like an outdoor education class. And
well, when you guys did like the Start Art program, like the whole school went, because it was being taught by like Steve Tracy, who was like an artist in London. And we all were a part of this art presentation at like Tourism London, and it was super awesome because like everyone in the school got to collaborate and like be a part of it.
Yes. And so sometimes you see those bigger numbers working, but especially when it comes to academic subjects or subjects where students might feel a little insecure about where they're at, it really does help to have a really small group, because then the teacher can connect with everyone and it doesn't feel like you're the only person who doesn't get it. Quite often you'll hear a whole class say, what? No, we don't get it. Let's do it again. And so, you know, when you say small class sizes, we're really small. We mean it. You know, it is something that, you know, you're not going to be in an academic class of more than 6 people. What about anything that was unexpected? Did anything suddenly, you know, surprise you about the school, Megan?
Everything surprised us. You know what? I think what surprised us the most is that we had a child who'd never been overly engaged when it came to learning, suddenly learning and learning happily. I think sometimes not even realizing what she was learning. And she really opened up at your school, which Heidi's a really quiet kid. So that says a lot. When I'm saying she opened up, she just seemed to really find herself. Because of where you're located, she was exposed to a lot of things that she's never been exposed to before. And I think it really opened her eyes to the world. It opened her eyes to that everyone she got to know all of the students well.
Yeah.
We're in her core group of classes a lot of the time. And I think it opened her eyes that it's okay to be an individual, to be unique, that to not judge other people based on what you see, and to not expect to have to be judged yourself. Like that was always a really big part of that I found of the London school, that, you know, everyone was just allowed to be themselves. Absolutely. And it was accepted, and
it was encouraged.
Questioned. Yeah, it was encouraged. Yeah. Yep.
Well, that, sorry. I agree. And I agree with what you said about Heidi. Although I think I got to see a side of Heidi that was super engaged and super friendly and outgoing once she was comfortable at the school. Yeah. So, you know, that I was thrilled to see that. And I think, you know, seeing someone I know who went from saying, I can't do math to getting a math award was phenomenal. And talking to her teacher, her math teacher, and saying, no, this student's not comfortable with math. She feels really unsure about it. And then, 1 week into class, having Russell say, are you sure? Like, do you want to double check, talk to her parents, because she really gets this stuff. And, she might consider going into a math related field, and having that moment of feeling really nonplussed of like, is this just the experience that she's had before? Or is it something we're doing totally differently? Or is it both? And then thinking, wow, I always think about keeping doors open, and keeping especially those STEM subjects open for young women is so important. So I was thrilled, really, really thrilled to see her open up that way. She still disputes it. I know.
But you know what? So she got the math award. That'd be two years ago.
Yeah, grade 11.
Now, yeah, I'm trying to think. It's 2 or 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. She still has that pinned up in her room on her bulletin board.
And she really deserved it. We sat down at the end of the year, and we looked at our top academic students and said, who is going to get this award? And we knew who was going to get the history award and who was going to get the English award, and math was really, really close, and so was science. And so it really was teasing out between 3 different students who was going to get this award, and it was 100% well deserved. And I remember her saying, really, me? And
yeah.
Yes, really, you. And she really, really has that capacity. But I think it would have just maybe been missed in a bigger class.
Most definitely. We saw it missed over and over again. Yeah. And that was every subject. So it's nice to see your children especially when they're so intelligent. Yeah. It's nice to see them when you suddenly see the light bulb go off.
Absolutely.
It's amazing to see.
Yeah. Okay, Emma. All right. If the school were to be represented as a single person, what would its personality be like in only 3 words?
That's really hard. I think that if the school was a person, I'd probably represent them with productivity, quirkiness, and sensitivity. And I think that those words really work well with the school, because I think that productivity is just increased when you're taken out of like a busy, loud environment and you're put somewhere where like your teachers and your classmates are working with you and they care about your success. And I think that the word quirky or quirkiness is appropriate, because at the school you really get to see people's mannerisms, and you get to see like how they work on things that are hard for them, and you really get to know them as like a real person. Like you get to see all their quirks and all the weird little things that they do. And I find that really endearing. And I think that the word sensitive would fit the London School if they were a person, because I don't think that young people are told enough that it's okay to like feel things differently from how other people might feel them, and it's okay to like have things go wrong, and it's okay to like feel things the way that you're going to internalize them. And I think that the teachers at the school and the other students who were there, like maybe some of the older students, were really there for not just me, but like everybody else as well, to know that like whatever you're feeling is like okay, and it's totally okay to be sensitive.
Oh, that's really touching. Very touching. Probably too touching. I hope they edit this part.
Caitlin, you should be proud of yourself. You created something, you and Cora, so unique, and you've helped so many kids, and helped so many kids become successful.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
not a lot of us can stand back at the end of our lives and say that. Look what I did.
Well, stop, you guys. Honestly, we are very, very proud. It's a real commitment, and we know it works. You see it happening, and sometimes, like COVID, you get thrown a curveball where you think, oh no, like how do we do what we do? And as I told Heidi, what we did was driveway meetings, and we have our Zoom, and we had all of that, but if somebody needs something, we'll drive it to you, we'll get it to you. Here's a USB, here's what you need. We just had to jump in really into the deep end, no water wings, and just start swimming, because it was pretty scary. Like, we didn't know if we could do what we always say that we can do, because we rely on that group connection. And so it was hard, but we did it. But we really are proud of that part.
I think it spoke to the level of caring that you have for your students, because I know last year, while you watched basically every other school classroom fall apart, you guys kept going.
Yeah.
And kept going successfully. And even just that routine of, okay, I need to be up because at 9 o'clock my Zoom is starting for my school, and then I've got my schoolwork to do. Like, that kept Heidi focused. It kept the anxiety down, because this is how every day's always been. We're going to carry on. And it showed how supportive everyone was of her education, and the teachers, and the commitment. And that meant, I think, when we felt like a lot of things were so questionable and unsure, that steadiness meant so much.
Well, that's really good to hear, because that kind of feedback means a lot. And especially, we've heard from some of our younger students, the people that were just starting grade 9 in that year. And grade 9 is a tough year to start. And then to have a pandemic start in March and have all that level of uncertainty. And we just said to everyone, don't worry, it's going to be the same, and we really tried to make it that continuation. And if that meant that we met in people's driveways, or that we, were able to socially distance, then that's what we were able to do. I remember Andrew saying to me, I need to get lab stuff to students, all in grade 9 science, and I need to get it to them next week. Can you help me? And I said, of course I can. So we packed up our stuff, and everyone had their own brown paper bag of grade 9 lab equipment stuff. And it was such a hoot watching them, because they had to film themselves doing all of these experiments. And there they are, they have the equipment, they have what they need, they're in their kitchen, and then they're getting another Zoom notification from me saying, don't leave a mess for your parents. Make sure it's cleaned up before they get home from work.
This is when you should have done some kind of a cooking course.
I think that would have been great. Here, make sure dinner's ready every day. Here's
next pandemic, put that one in your back pocket.
Yes, 23 days of dinners. and maybe home ec, right?
Actually, great. Yeah, you're in your home anyways. Yeah.
Bring back the here's how to load the dishwasher. So before your parents get home. So all right. So here is another one for you, Megan, which is, what does Heidi have to say about the school?
What does Heidi have to say about the school? We don't talk about you as much as we used to. Because it's become, she's graduated now. So
she's moving forward.
Anything I always found that, first of all, anytime when she would go someplace and people would say, where do you go to school? And she would say, I go to the London school. Even if you were in London, people would say, where's that?
Yeah.
So I think the smallness and uniqueness of it, that was something that at first bothered her. And then I think she got to enjoy it more as it became what was familiar. And she became a very big supporter of your school. And when she would explain how the classes were going, and the smallness, and I remember one of my husband's older aunts, when Heidi was talking about something to do with math, and she said, Russell, Russell, Russell. And Ron's aunt had said, who's Russell? And she said, that's my math teacher. And she's like, oh, you call him by his first name? And Heidi was like, I actually don't know his last name.
I don't actually either, now that I think about it.
Well, I think the goal is for us to help students make it through high school as a whole person, but also as someone who can interact really well as an adult, because everybody eventually grows up. And I don't typically call people that I work with or people that I meet or neighbors Mr. and Mrs. anymore. I want to be able to interact with them on a more personal level. And I think by teaching them that you can have just as much respect by calling someone Russell for that person as if they have a name or that is a last name, or like a teacher desk or a special chair or things like that. We don't need that. What we need to know is that we respect people for what they do and what they say, and it doesn't matter what they're called. And that's, as an adult, that's certainly how we tend to interact. I think it's really only schools, and only up to high school, really, I guess, that we really do interact in that top-down way. And it doesn't have to be that way. You become a really well-adjusted human, and that's the goal, right? Is to
Heidi had come to you with a lot of distrust of teachers, and I think it was just how I'm not sure. I think it was just how she felt. And when Emma and Avery and Heidi were taking the math course last year that they were all struggling with.
Yes.
And I remember her because this is one that was happening online, and it was difficult. It wasn't through you, it was through, so the three of them were trying to sort this out, a lot of themselves. And I remember Heidi getting very frustrated and just saying, we need some help. And I know we're going to figure this out, but, and I think Caitlin's working on something, but we really can't just figure this out. And, just kind of watching her go back and forth with, we've asked for help, we have to be patient, I hope this works, and just being open to how are we going to work this out so that the three of you can succeed in this class.
Yeah, that was a tough one, honestly.
Yeah.
Pandemic and advanced functions.
Not a good combo.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Yeah.
But then to see then in turn how when you did your own classes virtually, how different they were than a class like that.
I was surprised too. It was the first time I had a chance to see really firsthand what other people were doing. And I was surprised. I was surprised at that it was dull. I was surprised that it was just so matter of fact. It was very linear. There wasn't a lot of interest there. There wasn't anything to engage you. It just seemed like school, like when I went to school. Like it just didn't seem like things had changed, and yet socially our world has changed a lot. So the dynamic wasn't there. So I agree with that totally.
And I think for her, I know one of the most frustrating points about that experience was having to email the teacher and saying, there's three of us, we don't understand, and the teacher saying, refer back to this example that you've already looked at 10 times, that will help. And they're like,
and sometimes they would take like a week to answer your emails. And it's like, how are you supposed to, if you need help with a specific question that you can't advance with, like, unless you complete it, how are you supposed to do that in a time-friendly manner if they don't answer you for 5 business days?
Yeah, exactly. And that is we certainly experienced that too as a family, was, how do you, kids learn better in class, obviously, but with a pandemic, you can't be in class. And so how do you make that connection? And I think, this year was a better year for sure for us. But that first year when they were doing that, and it wasn't our course, and but I was watching it happen, and I was thinking, wow, there's no adapting this course from this other school. There's no changing it. But man, does it need to change? Yeah. I mean, it can be done better. And times are so different now. I mean, the young people today have such interesting minds. They have so many ideas. Teaching doesn't have to be top down, and it should appeal to you for sure. It should be something engaging. Let's see. Megan, I was supposed to ask you this one too, sorry. Which is, if the school was a person, and you had to describe their personality to someone else and use only 3 words, what words would you choose?
I would say open-minded, resilient, and kind.
I would love to be described that way.
Me too.
Me as well. Like, who wouldn't?
Thank you.
I get kind in there, right?
I think that we are kind. We spend a lot of time focusing as staff when we work together about the importance of being kind, because a lot of our students are coming from a bigger school environment where that environment
Kindness does not exist.
Yeah. And the environment wasn't kind. The environment had hurt them in some way, or sometimes in many ways. And yet you're expected to keep going back. And we always tell young people, like, be careful of the relationships you choose, because you shouldn't be in an unhealthy relationship. You should be in a healthy one. And yet sometimes school can be the most unhealthy relationship that you're in, and yet you have to go back every day. And that's not what I want for my children. I don't want them to feel like they have to go back to something that is unkind, or that it doesn't support them every single day. So I really appreciate you saying that we are kind, because that means a lot. And we hope that we're building resilient youth. We really do. The pandemic showed us that young people are incredibly resilient. They just took to the new way of learning, like, ducks to water. We had a few hiccups, but they made it through. They were encouraging each other. They stayed in touch with each other. And they didn't lose sight of the fact that, most of us were still really, really lucky to be here and stuff. So I think that really helped with resilience as far as that goes. Here's another one for you, Megan. How would you describe the values of our school?
I would say that that very much there's an expectation of tolerance, respect, and I would say, I don't know if you would call this a value, but I feel like when Heidi left the London school, she came out having learned that nothing is insurmountable. That if you take some time, if you be persistent, if you are focused, if you use your head, if you ask for help when you need it, that you can do anything you set your mind to. And I think, and I know that the London school, that was a key value she learned being in your school.
Well, thank you. I feel, I feel when we talk about barriers, and we do with the students and things that are hard, that a lot of our students have maybe avoided things that are hard in the past, and now at the school we're saying, hey, like, we're not going to avoid this, but we'll give you a rope and help you to climb over it, because you should keep trying, you should stick with it, and we're going to help you. We're not going to just close that door forever, because you never know when you're going to want that door to be open. And life throws all kinds of stuff at you, and hopefully we've helped our students to feel that they can persevere and that they can stick with it, and that they can succeed, because that's really what our goal is. And Emma, I have one for you here.
Okay.
Which is, if there's one thing that you could change about the school for the better, what would you choose?
I honestly think that I would choose to have more extracurriculars in each class, because when we did things like going to Camp Bell and going to the Grand Theater, it was like it was a little bit of repetition in that. Like we would go to Camp Bell like once a year, and we would go to the Grand Theater like once a month. Doing some other trips that maybe were outside of like the London sort of area would have been fun to do. And it might be something that the school could incorporate into future years. Yeah, I just think that like even doing something like I know obviously COVID got in the way of this, but doing something like an end of year like graduation trip would have been fun had COVID not been with that. But yeah, I think that that's the one thing that I would change or have feedback on.
That's good feedback because I think that that's important. I think we are kind of London centric. We do focus on stuff that is happening here in the community, like the food bank and Grand Theater and stuff like that. I think branching out is a great idea. I mean, I know our trips to Stratford were really well received. Those always are really popular. But I think, I am open to hearing from students a lot of things that they would like. And yes, COVID definitely did get in the way of some of our plans, particularly ones that affected you and Heidi, for sure. And Megan, if there's something that we could improve, or if you could change one thing, wave a magic wand and have something be different, what would you change?
If you could provide bus service to rural.
I'll just pick up Heidi, okay?
You know what though? I have actually, if I had said to you probably, can you meet me on the edge of London and get Heidi to school? You would have said yes.
We would have found a way. Yeah,
but that's your dedication to these students too. So no, that's, you know what, that's actually, that's a hard question.
It is.
Part of me would say, I know there was times where there was only 1 or 2 classes that Heidi had a choice of taking.
Yes.
But yeah. I think sometimes when you're limited to it's A or B, you're going to make a choice and you're going to make the best of it.
Yeah.
So sometimes the limiting in the classes was a little bit hard, but there was never a class she took that she didn't like. Remember her complaining up and down about having to take health. And then the next day saying, oh, we're going rock climbing next week.
Yes.
Yeah, health's horrible.
Yes.
And just, it's things like that. Yeah.
Well, I think
so. I think she had such a good experience, and it was always that way.
I was particularly thrilled with her being able to branch out into co-op when they revised the co-op curriculum, and she was able to go do something that she found interesting. And then I was able to go see her in that environment and see a different side of her and hear all about what she was doing. And then hear the people who were supervising her co-op, just say such great things about her, because I had saw her in an academic setting, and I didn't see her in the sort of outdoor
physical work,
physical mud, dirt, trees, all of these things. And then thinking now with her going into forestry,
that co-op gave her the outlook of this is the direction I want to go in. So that was, and that's the point. That's supposed to be the point of co-op.
Yes, exactly. And so I think I was really excited about that, but branching out and offering new courses, I think, is something that we have to do.
And with the co-op too, you gave her the freedom of what do you want to do?
Yes.
Where can we find what you want to do? Let's go find it. It just, and that really just opened everything up. It's like anything. Well, that's, yeah.
I can't take all the credit for that, because the curriculum did change in 2018, where they really expanded what you could do with co-op. I think the curriculum was from, a decade, maybe a decade and a half before, and hadn't been revised. And co-op always seemed like something that you did if you wanted to go straight into the workforce. You would basically go and learn how to do that job. Whereas co-op now is try on as many hats as you can, because you never know what's going to, catch your interest for something after high school. So, or we've had other students do co-op who've stayed on as volunteers in their co-op, or who, it's just opened a lot of different doors for them. So I was really excited to see that happen. All right, I'm almost to the end here. Emma, what do you think families would find the most surprising about the school? So if you were to tell a new family something, what would they be the most surprised about, do you think?
I think that the thing that was most surprising for me and would probably be for other families is that you actually get a lot of freedom in your learning. So, like when you have such a small class, the teacher can make the curriculum best fit the interests of like most of the students that are like in the class with you, as well as like if a class as a whole doesn't understand something, you guys can just go over it again. And I found that really beneficial because like sometimes I would like talk to somebody who was beside me and be like, do you get this? And they'd be like, nope. And then I was like, do you get this? And we would all ask to like go over it again. And that was something that I found really helpful, especially in like harder academic courses like sciences or maths. And I definitely appreciated that with projects, we were never really assigned a specific topic. We were always given the choice to like to figure out where our interests lay in the topic that was at hand, and we were able to like find out our own information and do our own research on whatever interested us in like the broad strokes of that course. So I also think that families might find the no assigned homework to be pretty surprising, because I found that surprising. Like the only way that there was homework is if you in some way or another wasted the time that we spent like doing it in class. And if you didn't finish it in class, it was for homework. But there was nothing that was ever like, do this tonight for homework. This is assigned. Like, and I really loved that.
In interviewing people, I do find that that is surprising for a
Well,
lot.
because in a normal classroom, like sometimes you get like chapters to read of a book, or you get like answer these questions out of a textbook or something like that. But there also are no textbooks at the school.
Well, I mean, we have lots of them, but they're there for reference because we want our teachers, well, when we interview our teachers, it's to know that they know their subject, that they don't need to rely on a textbook, that they can engage in it just through conversation, and that you can engage, your class because you know your subject and you're interested in it and you're passionate about it, and that the young people there, that rubs off, they can tell your enthusiasm for something. Everyone has their own passions, and if you get a chance to teach them, it's really rewarding. But yes, I do think the no homework is always a surprise. In an interview, we always see parents say, oh, like it's I don't have to have this happen every day. And then students, their ears perk up a little bit and they're like, no homework. And then
it's a little bit of an enticement. It's like okay.
The question we're always asked is, don't kids need homework? And I say always, no, they don't need homework, because I work all day, and to know that I worked all day, I don't have to go home and then work all night. I don't need to do more of the same to show that I worked all day. And, we always talk about work-life balance as adults, and we never seem to talk about it with teenagers. And teenagers have a full-time job, and that's school. And so they need a balance just like we do. We know how hard it would be for adults to work 2 jobs or 1.5 jobs and then still maintain family relationships and friends and other relationships or job. So I don't know why we ask students to do so much more after they've had a full day of school. It's much better, and they're going to feel more well-rounded if they're out having fun, having a job, helping around the house, helping their parents, interacting with their parents. And that's why homework was always just a no for us, because you don't need to do more of the same. And if you don't understand it, it seems completely unfair to send it home. It seems really unfair to say, here's stuff you don't know how to do. Go home and struggle with it for a couple hours and then come back tomorrow and feel good about it. That's not what we do. If you don't understand it, there's time at school to address it. And if you do understand it, why do more of it? You already understand it. So that's my takeaway on the whole homework thing, but it is very surprising. What do you think, Megan? What do you think would really surprise families? Or was there anything that we surprised you with when?
Everything surprised us because it was so opposite of what we had been used to. And that was a relief in a huge way because what we had been used to wasn't working.
Yeah.
I had actually wished that I had found the London School for our older children, because when we see how much Heidi benefited from this type of education, I can only imagine how it would have done for our other girls. It's nice to, and that's why when you asked me about doing this, I was more than happy to talk about it, because I think the more that the word gets out that this exists and it's in our community, that I can only imagine how many kids this would actually change their lives. And school doesn't have to be horrible. High school doesn't have to be a horrible experience. It can be a rewarding experience, an engaging experience where you learn and you are able to spread your wings and figure out what interests you and what do you want to do. And the environment at the London School really pushes children to exceed their own expectations, I think. So
Thank you. I think we are pretty much done here. Is there any advice that you would give to a new student I'll ask both of you. Is there any advice that you would give a new student? Emma, maybe you can say that. And Megan, maybe you can say a new family if they are coming to the school in September. Emma, do you want to go first maybe?
Sure, yeah. I think that my advice would be to a new student, if I was just having a conversation with them, is to try your best as much as you can to not be scared, because I understand that I've been in small class sizes since the London School opened. That's just where I've been going. But to somebody on the outside, a small class size might actually seem really intimidating because you're kind of under this spotlight that you've never been under before, where if you don't understand something, the teacher might want to go over it again and make sure that you are understanding what everybody's going through so that we can all go at somewhat of the same pace. But small classes obviously for me ended up being really beneficial because of that in the long run. And I think also I would try to tell somebody new that was coming to just try your best to not be shy, because there's not a huge pool of people at the school per se, but we're all very tightly knit and we're always accepting new people into the school. I remember wanting to make people feel welcome who were just starting out at the school. And I think that something like bullying or anything negative like that is not tolerated at the school, so you're not going to have to worry about something like that. And I've met some of my closest friends at the school, and we're all still really close even after graduating. So just try not to be shy, because I think that would be the only inhibitor in you succeeding socially at the school.
Thank you. That, and maybe not liking Starbucks. I don't know.
Yeah, that is, who wants to be around that?
Is there any advice you would give new parents just before we wrap up?
I would say keep an open mind. I would say I think you've made a really good choice for your child. I would say that the London School is worth every penny.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think.
Thank you.
I really appreciate both of you giving time today, and we will all still stay in touch. I'm sure of that. And I wish Heidi so much luck at Lakehead. It's far away, but it is right. You know, it's like she just has to step outside the door and she's in a forestry environment.
Yes, so that's a big part of, she actually has to start school 10 days early because she's got field study.
Wow.
And
well,
so in some ways it's nice because she gets to move into her dorm early. She gets to get used to things before there's a lot of people there. So I think as far as a transition for her, it's a good thing.
That is amazing. Well, these graduates are doing some pretty cool stuff, I have to say. You know, we have forestry, we have environmental science, we have biology and the environment and climate change, we have neuroscience. Yeah, we've got students doing some pretty amazing things. Yeah, we're excited.
Maybe since they didn't get their grad party, they'll have to have a first year end of school party.
Yes.
Well, I did see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine that we would not be having one, and we would like to have a grad for the whole 3 years, you know, and just have a big blowout and have everybody back here, because university and college will be done. And so if students are able to come, we'll have an amazing event and they can all come and have what they should have had, you know, without COVID. So we will definitely do that. And hopefully see all the parents there too. Are you in for that, Emma?
So yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I'm going to sign off. Hopefully we have fulfilled all of the things that they wanted us to do. And I'll be in touch about when you can see it or what it looks like. I really
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye.